it looks like United have decided they're making their bed with Erik ten Hag. The problem for Erik, of course, people say it's a gamble. Any manager going into Manchester United is a gamble because there's so much to be done there.
Yeah, but for me, that's why. I mean, I would agree with Ian Ladyman's line in the Daily Mail. I think because of the specific type of manager or really coach he's been at Ajax, and what everyone says about his career, it's why. I mean, my huge reservation about this would be that United need more than a kind of a training ground coach in that regard, because that's what he could. We were discussing this earlier on. But if he went to Man City, say, eventually succeeding Pep Guardiola, that's what he could be. He could just go in there and coach the team. Whereas Manchester United, because there's so many issues around it, and essentially because they almost need a force of personality to revive the club, to complement all actual kind of managerial ability, I just think it's a risk.
Van Gaal and Mourinho, and it didn't work. People argue that didn't work either.
Well, I suppose the one, that's one difference I draw between those two and Ten Hag now. Whereas Ten Hag, even though he's actually in his 50s now, which is maybe middle age in managerial terms, shall we say, he's, I suppose, a manager kind of on an upward curve. Whereas when they appointed Van Gaal and Mourinho, they're both maybe on the downward curve of their careers. And also, it was maybe a slightly different Manchester United in that it was Woodward's. It's all a little bit more open now, but that just means it's kind of almost there's more to sort out structurally, and it's why it's been interesting, this whole debate about whether Ten Hag wants control of transfers or how much is going to be given to some sort of football infrastructure, because it feels like that's exactly what Manchester United need, and if they don't have that structure in place yet, then they actually do need a manager who's willing to be much more hands-on.
Would any manager get control of transfers? Because it strikes me that the Glazers make the decision. They've got this John Murder, they've got Darren Fletcher. Nobody's quite sure who's in charge below the Glazer level. Then you've got the manager, as you say. What input is he going to have? Which is why in Neil's piece in The Sun, he was saying that Ten Hag was virtually interviewing them to try and find out what on earth responsibilities he will have beyond coaching the team. And I'm still not sure that that's been made clear.
Absolutely, it does completely feel like that, because. And you'd have to imagine, because the situation United are in, and because, as you say, there's as much an element of them trying to coax Ten Hag as Ten Hag trying to sell himself for the job. But I suppose they have to try and paint the picture of a modern football club. Whereas if you talk to anyone in modern football now, they kind of pretty much dismiss United's decision-making capabilities as a football entity, especially when it's perceived that ultimately, as we were saying earlier, no matter what, all the major decisions have to go past the Glazer hierarchy, and while that might work in some business decisions, obviously, of course, there's a bigger debate around that. It doesn't necessarily work in football, as we've seen from pretty much the last decade.
But Dan, don't you think that, or both of you, any manager, it seems to me, who comes into United now is a gamble? It doesn't matter what sort you choose now; it's a gamble.
Look. We saw this. Perhaps it's fair to say at Arsenal, when Manchester City and Liverpool, riding so high at the moment, may have this issue coming down the pipeline as well. When these long-established managers, and we're going back to Ferguson here. United have won trophies since then, but they haven't had that identity, that fear factor, all those things that we talk about. And I wonder for Erik ten Hag, both of you, whether, he, of course, he's a disciple of Pep Guardiola. They were together at Bayern Munich. He's his own man too, and he's done well at Ajax, including winning all their group stage Champions League matches this season when Sebastian Haller was scoring goal after goal after goal. But he was at Ajax, a club where recruitment, youth policy, is not just properly done, it's on rails. It really is, and I've been over there and studied it myself at their youth ground, how they do this thing, and it's incredible what we've seen at Manchester United, with a mixture of bringing through good players from the youth ranks, but also buying in very expensive players who may or may not. But what have they done with Jadon Sancho for the past 6, 8, 10 months? I mean, it's just incredible, and it's going to be. It's a gamble for United, but it's also going to be a shock for Erik ten Hag, I'm sure of it.
What almost sums that up is the fate of the manager that West Ham knocked out on Thursday, Peter Bosz. I mean, for so long, actually, because he got Ajax to Europa League final in 2017 against Mourinho's United, he was seen as a similar sort of managerial prodigy. And while that did amplify his career, I'm certainly he hasn't gone on to kind of the heights that you might have expected.
It's been a mess since then, and we were just discussing it last night on Trans Europe Express. If Bosz doesn't do it in the next 6-7 months, at Lyon, his managerial career will fade away because you're right. He was one of these people that shine a light on. He's been given 2 or 3 big chances now, and none of them have quite come off.
And actually, you do wonder in that sense as well whether Ajax could be similar for managers as well as it is for some. I mean, if you look at the amount of players that have come from Ajax in recent times, they've actually quite struggled in the Premier League. From Claessens, who Everton signed it to most recently, Donny van de Beek, and whether it's one of those situations where when everything in a club works so well, it maximises the abilities of those there. I mean, when they go out of that, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll have the same effect. And I suppose maybe that's the biggest question over Ten Hag, especially to go to somewhere that's been as dysfunctional as Manchester United.